Joining this morning for our kickoff meeting for our annual reporting period for CitySwitch. Thanks everyone for joining. I think it's 11 a.m. now, so we can make a start. Seems like a lot of people have logged in, so thanks for joining. This session will be recorded and uploaded on our YouTube channel later this week. And please put any questions that you might have in the comments in the chat, and we'll answer them as we go. So this session will be recorded. And just as a quick intro, so my name is Ivan Jones, a National Coordinator. I'm the City of Sydney Programme Manager for CitySwitch. We also have Annie Mack on the call as well, who is the Greater Metro and Regional Programme Manager. And we also have Jack here as well, who's the City of Melbourne Programme Manager as well. So reach out to any of us during this reporting period as well. We're all happy to help you. So before we make a start, I'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, the original custodians of the local area I'm joining you on today. I'd also like to acknowledge their continued connections to country. I pay my respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, past, present and emerging. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands you are joining us from today, and any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders on this call today. I also encourage you to drop in the chat what country you're joining us from today as well. So here's the agenda for today's session. So I will start off by going through how CitySwitch performed last year during the reporting period, why you ask for you to report, and to touch on mandatory climate reporting as well. Annie will run through how to navigate our reporting spreadsheet, along with what data and information you'll need to prepare and collect. And Jack will run through the privacy of your data and our Champions Award, as well as some next steps as well. We'll also have some time for a Q&A session towards the end as well. So just a quick snapshot of the programme as of last reporting period, so the FY23 reporting period. So these numbers have fluctuated since then, but we have around 213 members across the country. That's about 744 tenancies, and that's equivalent to around 10% of all Australian office space signed up to the CitySwitch programme. So as you can see, a lot of our members are based in the New South Wales, Victoria area, but we also have members across the country. And we're definitely looking to expand the programme and get some new members on board. So if you know any businesses that might be interested, please send them our way. So this slide basically just compares our results from our recent reporting period, so last year's, and our 2022 reporting period. So in the table here, you can show that we've kind of had improvements across the board in all kind of metrics. So as an example, we've had an increase in members measuring their scope 1, 2 and 3 emissions, an increase in the average neighbours energy tenancy rating, and an increase in members purchasing energy from renewable sources. So this just shows that our members are heading in the right direction and making some great progress in their net zero journey. And hopefully we'll see an improvement from last year, from last year's in this year's reporting period. And our annual report from last year is also available on our website, so please head there to have a read through last year's. So why do we ask you to report? So I guess you can't manage what you don't measure. So many reporting programs ask you to regularly measure your progress for a good reason. You need quantitative data with regular checkups to actually measure your progress and accountability. It's also a good way to track your own progress and see how you're measuring against your own goals and targets as well. It also helps you get data ready for other reporting frameworks. So we use the same definitions of emissions scopes as the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, and this aligns well with many other reporting frameworks and rating systems, such as the upcoming mandatory climate reporting, which I'll touch on in the next slide. The data we ask for also could contribute towards a neighbour's tenancy rating. The report also helps councils, so all the partner councils in CitySwitch, to understand the effect how CitySwitch is doing, and how we can kind of support local businesses to decarbonize and reach net zero. And also the reporting questions also provide valuable feedback as well, and helps us to improve the program. So we want to ensure the program is kind of valuable to our members, and also kind of gives us a good picture of the level of progress towards net zero from our members. And it also helps us to tailor the content for our members and plan CitySwitch campaigns for the year ahead as well. So it helps us kind of plan the program for the next financial year. So just to touch really quickly on mandatory climate related financial disclosure. So the Australian Senate passed new legislation for mandatory climate reporting last year in September 2024, and this will be a compulsory annual sustainability report in line with the Australian sustainability reporting standards. This has actually commenced since January this year, so 2025, for Group 1 entities, and then Group 2 and Group 3 entities will need to start reporting in July 2026 and 2027. So with the groups, as you can see in the table here, so your Group 1s will be your really, really big corporates, and you have to kind of meet 2 of the 3 of the following in consolidated revenue, consolidated assets, and number of employees, and then Groups 2 and 3 are smaller companies. So it's estimated that around 6,000 entities will be required to report by 2027. And then also around 80,000 entities will be affected by this reporting. So you might kind of land in the scope 3 or value chain of the groups 1 to 3 down the track. And also to support our members and businesses with this, we'll be running a mandatory climate reporting campaign this year in April to June. So what is your data used for? So all the CitySwitch partner councils use your data to inform our targets, and also helps our various environmental strategies to reduce emissions from the built environment in the commercial office space. We also share data with DECU, so the Department of Climate Change, Energy, Environment and Water, which helps form strategies at a national level. So it's quite important stuff. But also just note that all business information is removed before any data is shared, and Jack will touch on this later in the presentation. So I'll now hand over to Annie to run through how our reporting actually works. So thank you, Annie.
Thanks, Ivan. Hi, everyone. So essentially, we want our reporting process to be as accommodating as possible for all our members. So the data you provide should be representative of a continuous 12-month period in the last 20 months. So it doesn't need to fall within a calendar or financial year or financial period. We essentially just want it to match however you report, making it less taxing and trying to fit your data into our spreadsheet. We're quite flexible with the 12-month continuous reporting period. This year, we will not be using the Microsoft form for many reasons. One of them was being that you can't save as you go. So you should have already been given this from your program manager, but we'll have every member using the spreadsheet. So you can save it to your computer. It's easy to copy and paste data into. And after you've completed the spreadsheet, we'll get you to email them to your program manager. So as you all know by now, reporting is mandatory, but I do want to make clear not all questions are mandatory within the spreadsheet. So what is mandatory? Scope 1 and 2 data, the champion section within our questionnaire and our CitySwitch support section. What isn't mandatory is scope 3. So, and I guess like why is this the case? So when you sign up to providing scope 1 and 2 data. So that's why that's mandatory, and those questions are mandatory. We ask that the champions section is mandatory because we want to get as much info as possible in tracking the campaign success and your success. That's really important to the program. And the CitySwitch support section is mandatory because this helps determine how we support you throughout the year, just like Yvonne kind of touched on before. And as I said before, scope 3 mission questions are all optional. So as I said, it's only one spreadsheet per member, per business. So if you're a national organisation with multiple offices, you only need to provide the one spreadsheet. You can complete all your office data in the one spreadsheet. Everyone who is responsible for reporting would have received, as I said, an email from a program manager. So members do need to decide who will be championing and reporting for all offices. If you have more than 20 offices, you need to report on. You should speak directly with your program manager because we will help, we'll find the easiest way to capture your data because you have such a large amount of offices to report on. For those with just one office, expect it to take around 30 minutes. If you have more than one office, set aside at least an hour. So reporting opened on Monday, ends on the 28th of Feb, so it's open for 4 weeks. And we recommend that you, before you complete the spreadsheet, that you read and go over the guide that we have provided. It essentially is the exact same that's on this, has more detail than these slides. Did see a question before, but the guide will guide you through the reporting and answer a lot of your questions. Your program manager will be sending a reminder once a week during this period, so we recommend that you get in early to avoid these. Or please do respond to us and let us know when you're planning to complete it. Again, the guidelines will assist you through the process. And yeah, it would be great. Yeah. So I'll go to the next slide, Yvonne.
Yep. 1 second.
That's okay. So the next slide is around, so after COVID, we realised a lot of our members had left their tenancies and moved to co-working spaces. So we are definitely wanting to track that. And so we wanted to capture that in our reporting. We understand that you can't provide energy data, and that's okay. So all we ask is that you say yes or no to working in a co-working space, skip the energy data questions, and our consultants, and we'll ask for a number of desks that you lease within the co-working space. That's pretty much it. And we'll ask you to provide an estimate of your net lettable area. Next question. Thanks, Yvonne. Okie dokie. So, as I said before, I recommend that you look at the guide. It follows this format. What's important to note is that the spreadsheet is split into office and organizational data. So there's 2 tabs. So for instance, we ask your energy data at an office level, but scope 3 at organizational level. And there are 8 sections, and I'll run through them now with you. Next slide. Great. Thanks, Yvonne. Section 2. So in section 2, we'd like to understand your organisational commitment to net zero and progress with renewable energy and offsets to reach carbon neutrality. Most of the questions in this section require a simple yes or no. The exception is the request for tons of offsets used, and most of these questions are not mandatory. The green House Gas Protocol breaks down your Scope 3 emissions into 15 categories, and some categories like business travel and employee commuting are, easier to quantify and reduce, while other data like purchase goods and services or investments can be challenging. So companies starting out by measuring their Scope 3 emissions in part, we will ask, it's more yes and no. We're not really asking for data, just whether you're measuring it. Next question, next slide, please, Yvonne. Section 3, CitySwitch Champions, Awards and Leadership. So the best way to get the most out of the CitySwitch program is really to use our resources that we've developed to make, to help you make the change and reduce your emissions in your own business. CitySwitch members who've significantly engaged with the education campaigns and resources over the reporting period will be invited to submit an application to become a CitySwitch champion. And we'll hopefully win that CitySwitch champion status. So we'll ask you a few questions. We'll ask which of the following CitySwitch emissions reductions resources you've used to help make changes within your own business over the past 20 months. And you'll have the opportunity to elaborate if you're invited to provide a CitySwitch champion submission. Section 4, very important, is the CitySwitch support section. So it's around internal engagement, industry leadership, and in this section, it's about us understanding your influence. So we want to know what campaigns that you're engaged in. There will be a list, of the CitySwitch campaigns or actions that you can respond yes or no to. And we also want to know the value of the program. It's really important. So 1 indicates not useful at all, and 10 indicates very useful. The answers to all these questions are extremely valuable for us program managers. We want to know how to support you throughout the next 12 months so that you get the most out of this program. And some of that support can be in the form of practical guides, it can be lunch and learns, it can be local meetups, it can be just meetings with your program manager. Next slide. So section, what are we up to? Section 5, yep. This is the mandatory part with the red asterisks you can see. This is where we ask for your scope 1 and 2 data per office. This is where you input your energy data from your office, and many of these questions are mandatory. I won't spend time going through every question, but important, key pieces, net lettable area, what is that? We want to know electricity use, percentage of renewable sources, and then how did you access the renewable electricity, gas, petrol, whatever it may be. We would like to know the energy consumption of your building tenancy. There's a neighbours question there, but really, if you have more than one office, there's columns for multiple. I think it's up to like 20 offices that you can complete. So we think we would, if you we think it's best for all members to sign up their offices to CitySwitch. So input as many of your offices and energy data as you can. And that's pretty much it, I think. Yep, cool. Next slide. All right, section 6 to 8. So these are the scope 3 emissions at an organisational level. These questions should be optional. And the first couple questions are around waste. So tons of waste as an your waste to landfill in tons as an organisation. If you haven't quantified waste recently, we do have a waste tool that can help support that, but it's very much an estimate. Then we've got a list of common scope 3 emission sources that we ask for you to tick a box, essentially, of ones that you're starting to measure and quantify. And that's basically it. Next will be we'll get Jack to speak to, I think it's next, privacy with data.
Yeah, thanks, Annie.
No worries.
Yeah, so obviously we're collecting a lot of data from you, and it's important for us to keep this confidential and private, and very much tell you exactly what we're going to be using it for. So obviously this is important to keep the data that you submit to us private, and only use it for the purpose that we've stated that we would use it for. The way that we do that has changed from previous years. So CitySwitch is a national program, and that being said, like, we keep all of our data in City of Sydney systems as the national administrator of the program. So that's who collects your data, and that's who has the custody of your data as part of being part of the CitySwitch program. And we share with CitySwitch partners. So that's only governmental partners. And yeah, basically the federal government there, the DECU that you can see on the slide. I won't go through the acronym, but we never publish your business level data. It's not like, one of those public reporting programs where you can see star ratings for different businesses and rankings and that sort of stuff. We don't do that. We purely use the data that you collect for us to help administer the program and produce our annual report. So if you haven't seen that before, and go and find that on the website. Basically, it's I think Ivan had some statistics on it earlier in the presentation around key achievements on our net zero pathway throughout the year. We aggregate all that together, and that's what gets published in a PDF document once a year. And just be aware that the City of Sydney may share your information with state or federal government departments or agencies, but all of the personal identifying information that directly identifies your business will be removed before that happens. There is a privacy statement on the spreadsheet and in the guide that you can read for the full details of that. Next slide, please, Ivan. So what we're doing this year, in previous years we've done awards, and we started this last year, which was the CitySwitch Champions process. And if you've got your phone with you, there's a QR code in the top right there that you can read the Champions article from last year's awards. Basically, we'll recognise businesses that have exemplified best practice in all of our previous campaigns since the launch of our the net zero pathway in 2022. Basically, the local program manager, so that's me and Annie and Ivan, whoever you report to, will basically invite you to do a champion submission based on your responses from your reporting spreadsheet. It's very short and simple. I think it's a one-page Word document form that basically asks you to elaborate on your reporting submissions that will ask you to complete if you're invited to become a CitySwitch champion. And then basically we'll celebrate your best practice achievement in our Sydney and Melbourne annual events, which happen probably sometime in April or May. And then we sort of want to promote your achievement as champions to the CitySwitch network and beyond. So it's something that you can advertise to, your whoever you serve as your business, and on your websites and that sort of thing as well. So yeah, look forward to that, and yeah, really take to heart those questions on the reporting as well. Another reason to report for champions recognition. Next slide, please, Ivan. So next steps for this, basically your program manager, so me, Annie, or Ivan, should have already sent you the data collection spreadsheet and guide. Please let us know as soon as possible if you haven't got that, because we may not have the right contact for your organisation. A few people have already done that in the chat, and that's very helpful. Thank you. Any questions about this we'll answer after I finish speaking, and also direct them via email to your program manager. Reporting finishes on the 28th of February, so start early, start now. If you start collecting the data now, if anything comes up, we can answer questions for you really early, and don't hesitate to get in touch with us either via call or set up a meeting to help you with this reporting. Submit that spreadsheet to your local program manager via email, and then we'll basically do some basic checks on it and get in touch with you if there's anything that's incorrect or that's missing. and register for the upcoming annual events. We don't have them on the website yet, but look out for those. We'll send you some correspondence. Yeah, thanks. Ivan, next slide.
Cool, thanks, Jack. I might unmute everyone now for a Q&A session. See how that goes. I'll try and do that now in the settings. Give me 1 second.
Feel free to also put your questions in the Q&A section as well, which we can answer.
Yeah, I think that should have worked for everyone now. So if you want to, if you have a question, if you can unmute yourself, then that would be great.
Maybe
If
raise
that
your hand
works.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Tanya. I was just wondering if you're able to send us historical reports for our organisations if we're new to the role, just because obviously we want to make sure that we're consistent.
I can probably answer that one, Tanya. Definitely talk to your program manager. I've been able to do it, depending on whether you your predecessor used the Microsoft form or spreadsheet. But definitely talk to your program manager. It is possible, and I can help you and support your program manager in that too.
I'll have a look for you, Tanya. I think I've got something from Michael that I can give you. So.
Great.
Well, thanks, Tanya. Any other questions from anyone?
I think there's some in the chat. Yeah, Cynthia. Apologies that I don't have my headset. How to approach the data and questions if you're a global company? Should all questions be asked only looking at the Australian data? So, Ivan, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah. So it should just be your Australian offices. So obviously it is a national program, so we welcome all of your Australian offices, but we don't ask you to report on your international offices because obviously CitySwitch is just an Australian program. Does that answer your question, Cynthia?
Wonderful, thank you. Awesome. There's another question in the Q&A, Ivan. The format for Scope 1 and 2 asks for kilowatt hours, but not CO2 equivalent. Does CitySwitch convert to CO2 equivalent? So, I mean, I can answer this one. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, Ivan, we collect the raw energy consumption figures, because then we use standardized factors in our back end when we report the figures in the annual report. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Does that answer your question, Yoshiko? I'm going to assume yes.
KB also had a question about 10 minutes ago. Half of our workforce is remote. Do we need to collect their working from home data? At this stage, I believe not. We don't ask you to report on your working from home data. Yeah, short answer to your question.
Yeah, data related to your office tenancy.
Yeah. Is there any other questions in the chat?
I think that's it, Ivan.
Okay, that's quite a short session. Oh, well, Yoshiko?
Yeah, yes, I'm answering this one. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Yoshiko. Yeah.
So if CitySwitch is using the conversion, some of our locations switched provider during the 2024, but I guess it doesn't matter. And according to GHG protocol, different providers should have different conversion rate, but not in this case. Is that correct?
We say they've switched energy providers, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. For the purposes of this, yes, that's right. Yoshiko, it doesn't matter because we'll do the CO2 conversion for you. It's and yes, strictly not to do with the GHG protocol reporting, but this is for us to have the same factors across everyone that submits data. So,
Understand. Thank you.
Yeah.
And if we close some locations during the year, do I just take the raw data of kilowatt hour consumption during this location is in operation?
We're looking for full 12 months worth of
Yes.
data. So, and it has to be the same 12 months for across all of your offices. So there's only one reporting period per organization spreadsheet that gets submitted. And so basically the data that you enter has to be consistent across all the offices for a contiguous same 12-month period. Does that make
Yes.
sense? Yeah.
Yes. So if Office 1 is open from January to August and closes in September, I just add this 8 months data to the January to December altogether aggregated number.
Is that how we want to do it, Ivan? If it's only open for 8 months, is that what you want to report on?
Yeah, I guess so. Or is it worth including that office if it's not open anymore? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
That the office is closed. That office is closed now.
Yeah.
I would say not to include it if it's not
Yeah.
a continuous 12-month
Yeah, I agree.
period.
Yeah, if it's not open anymore, if that office isn't part of the organization anymore, I would not include it in this year's reporting.
Okay. So at the end of the 12 months, include only the locations that are still open at the end of these 12 months.
Yeah, true.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Thank
correct.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So I know that you have a lot of offices, Yoshiko, around the country.
Yes.
So it might be a big task for you to report on
Yeah.
all of them. But
Thank
I'll
you.
chat to you after this session about what we can kind of what's realistic for you to do as your first year of reporting. So we're
Excellent.
definitely flexible to help you out with that. So
Thank you very much.
No pressure. Is there any more questions from anyone at all? If not, feel free to direct any questions after the session to myself, Annie and Jack. We're always here to help and happy to answer any questions. This will also be recorded, obviously, and put on our YouTube channel. So we'll send this around as well to our CitySwitch members. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining. And I really appreciate your participation in this year's annual reporting. It means a lot to the program.